The bus rolled smoothly onto Raytown's main street, and I exhaled with quiet relief. Home. After 2 long months away from my daughter, I was more than ready to return. I had loved visiting Prudence and her family, but at 67, I no longer had the appetite for unfamiliar places or borrowed routines. I craved my own kitchen's silence, the curve of my mattress, the slow rhythm of my days. "Here we are, ma'am," the driver said, glancing at me in the rear-view mirror. I stood slowly, my knees resisting the movement after the 5-hour ride. A sharp reminder of my age. I retrieved my small suitcase from the overhead rack, on wheels now, not a backpack like I used to carry. Practicality had long since replaced pride. Raytown hadn't changed. The same tidy little houses lined Main Street. The same good food market on the corner. Tuesdays were still senior discount days, and the same dusty park where mothers pushed strollers and exchanged gossip. I caught myself scanning for familiar faces. I hadn't seen my sister-in-law Doreen or my granddaughter Lily in that park for a while. The cab dropped me in front of my modest home on Alder Street, the one George and I bought 35 years ago when our children were small. "It's an investment in the future, Evie," he'd said. He always thought ahead. He'd be proud of how I've handled our finances since he passed. Inside, the house greeted me with a soft chill and the scent of still air. I opened the windows wide, welcoming the breeze of early May. 2 messages blinked on the answering machine. One was from Monica at the book club, inviting me to next Wednesday's meeting. The other was from the bank, just a confirmation that the monthly mortgage payment on my son Fletcher's house had gone through, as it had for the past 5 years. Fletcher had lost a good job in the city and taken a lesser one here, appraising properties for half the salary. The move to Raytown had been temporary, he'd said. "Just until I get back on my feet, Mom." I had just buried George then, and the big house felt unbearable. Having family nearby had seemed like a comfort. I helped with the down payment, and ever since, I'd quietly paid 2/3 of their mortgage. Fletcher always promised to repay me. I never pressed. I didn't need the money. George's pension, insurance, and our investments left me comfortable. It felt good to be useful. After unpacking and a hot shower, I decided not to delay seeing Fletcher's family. Yes, we had spoken while I was away, but I missed Lily, my quiet, thoughtful 6-year-old granddaughter. Not at all like Doreen's 2 children from her previous marriage. Boisterous, high-energy Lance, now 14, and preteen Marissa, always practicing for some competition. Fletcher's house was a 10-minute walk from mine, a modest 2-story place with a small garden. But something felt off as I approached. The lawn looked like it hadn't been mowed in years. Weeds choked the flower beds. Fletcher used to take pride in his yard, always tending to it on weekends. That pride seemed to have withered. I knocked on the door, listening to the faint din of a game show blasting from the living room. Doreen answered. Her expression froze, then quickly adjusted into a smile. "Evelyn! What a surprise. We weren't expecting you today." She ran a hand through her hair and tugged her oversized t-shirt into place. "I decided not to call ahead," I said with a smile. "Got back a couple of hours ago and wanted to see everyone." Sure. Come on in," she said, stepping aside. "The kids will be happy to see you. Lance, Marissa, Grandma Evelyn's here." She didn't mention Lily. My chest tightened. The living room was a disaster. Couch cushions thrown about, snack wrappers littered the coffee table, and the TV was unbearably loud. Lance, tall and indifferent, nodded at me from behind his tablet. "Hi, Grandma." He didn't look up again. Marissa, chewing something, bounded in from the kitchen. "Grandma," she squealed, hugging me. "Did you bring anything back from your trip?" Always gifts. I'd grown used to being the candy-bearing old lady. "Of course, darling," I said gently. "I left it at home, but I'll bring it next time." I patted her head. "Where's Lily?" "She's upstairs doing homework. Doreen said quickly, turning the volume down. Fletcher's still at work. He should be home in an hour. Want some tea? I nodded and followed her into the kitchen. I noticed some new items, an expensive coffee maker, a high-end microwave. Not that I was counting, but these didn't align with the tight budget Fletcher had described. How are the Prudences? Doreen asked as she set the kettle on. And how was New Haven? Busy. Prudence is thriving at the gallery. Lovely town, but too noisy for me, I replied. How's Lily doing at school? Doreen's face tensed. Fine, she said with a shrug. The teacher says she's too quiet, doesn't socialize much. We might have her see a psychologist. Maybe she just needs more attention at home, I offered gently. We give her plenty of attention, Evelyn, she snapped. But we have 3 children, and Lily isn't the only one who needs support. Lance is going through adolescence, and Marissa has a swimming competition in 2 weeks. Her tone made it clear. Lily was always the exception, never part of the whole. I nodded, letting it go. How's Fletcher doing? Better, she said, placing a teacup in front of me. He was promoted to senior appraiser. Salary hasn't changed yet, but he says it'll increase by year's end. By the end of the year. I'd heard that before. Still, my money kept the roof over their heads. That's great, I said, sipping my tea. Mind if I say hi to Lily? Doreen hesitated. She really needs to focus. She got a bad grade in math, so she's studying. Better to wait until after dinner. Something in her voice made me uneasy. Lily had always been a straight-A student. Since when couldn't a 6-year-old pause to hug her grandmother? We returned to the messy living room. Doreen made a half-hearted attempt to clean. Sorry about the mess. The kids were wild today. She laughed thinly. Lance, take your headphones off the table. I noticed a cluster of new photos on the shelf. Doreen and the kids at a beach resort, Lance on a new bike, Marissa in her swim gear, Fletcher and Doreen in front of a yacht. These are lovely, I said. When was this? March. Spring break. Just 4 days. Got a great deal, she said, clearly uneasy. I remembered March. That was when Fletcher had called, desperate for $2,000 to fix the roof. Apparently, roof repair was code for vacation. And where's Lily in these pictures? I asked. Doreen looked away. She was with my mom, coming down with a cold. We didn't want to risk it. Or didn't want to spend money on an extra ticket, I thought. Then I heard it. Quiet footsteps from upstairs. A small figure appeared on the stairs. Lily, in a plain t-shirt and jeans, clutching the railing as she descended. Her face lit up when she saw me. Grandma! Lily, I told you not to come down until you were done with your lessons, Doreen snapped. The girl froze, her small shoulders stiffening. I stood and opened my arms. Come here, sweetheart. I missed you so much. Lily rushed into my embrace, trembling. I hugged her tight. You've grown, I said, pulling back to look at her. And your hair. She smiled shyly, tugging her braid. How long are you staying, Grandma? I'm back for good, sweetheart. We'll see each other often now. Lily, go finish your homework, Doreen interrupted. She has a test tomorrow. I'm almost done, Lily whispered. Almost doesn't mean done, Doreen said sharply. Upstairs. Now. The joy drained from Lily's face. She turned to go. I'll be with you in a minute, I said. Doreen's lips thinned, but she said nothing. I'll help her with her math. I was an exact accountant, after all. As you wish, she muttered. I'll make dinner. Will you stay? If you don't mind. Once Doreen retreated to the kitchen, I climbed the stairs to the smallest bedroom at the end of the hall. I knocked. "Come in," came a soft voice. Lily was at her tiny desk, notebook open. Her room was sparse, a bed, a narrow closet, a shelf of books. No toys. No posters. Not like Lance and Marissa's gadget-filled dens. "Show me your math," I said, sitting beside her. She slid over the notebook. "First grade problems. All correct." "This is perfect," I said. "You're doing great." "I know," she whispered. "But Mom always checks. Just in case." Her face looked thinner than I remembered. Pale. Shadows under her eyes. "How's school?" I asked. "Fine. Teacher says I read well." "And friends?" She hesitated. "Not very many. But Abby sits next to me. She's kind." "That's good," I said. "And at home? Do you get along with Lance and Marissa?" Her face shut down. "It's fine. They're older." Her voice was flat. I didn't push. I pulled a small box from my pocket. "I brought you something." She opened it and gasped. A silver pendant, shaped like a crescent moon with a tiny star. "Is this for me?" "Of course," I said, fastening it around her neck. "It's a charm. When you feel sad or scared, touch it and remember your grandma is always with you." Lily threw her arms around me. She was trembling again. "Thank you," she whispered. We sat together for another half-hour. I told her about my trip, the dinosaur museum I visited, just so I could describe it to her. And in that moment, sitting in that small bare room, I realized something I hadn't wanted to admit. My granddaughter was growing up in a house that saw her as an obligation, not a joy. And no child should have to learn how to feel invisible. Lily listened wide-eyed, absorbing every word I said. With each sentence, I watched her awaken, her eyes brighter, her posture looser, as if the inquisitive, eager little girl I remembered had been sleeping behind her pale expression all along. Then came the sharp slam of the front door downstairs. Fletcher was home. I heard his voice first, boisterous, cheerful, greeting Doreen, followed by the loud stomps of Lance and Marissa rushing to meet their father. "Let's go downstairs," I said, gently taking Lily's hand. "Your daddy's back." Down in the living room, the atmosphere had shifted completely. Fletcher, still in his work clothes, lounged in a chair while Lance animatedly showed him something on a tablet. Marissa was buzzing around, flashing her new headphones. Doreen stood in the kitchen doorway, arms crossed, wearing the satisfied smile of a woman who believed her family was just as it should be. "Mom!" Fletcher exclaimed when he saw me, standing up with arms open. "What a surprise! Why didn't you tell me you were coming?" He pulled me into a hug, and I caught a whiff of expensive cologne. Another indulgence, I noted silently, for a man who constantly claimed to be scraping by. "I thought I'd surprise you," I said, smiling faintly. "How's work?" "Better and better," he replied brightly. "I'm expecting a promotion in a couple months, so we'll soon be able to talk about a return on your investment in the house." Investment. He called it that now. Not a loan. Not help. Not even gratitude. Just business, like I had ever expected returns. I shook my head. "Take your time. Get on your feet first." "Oh, I'm almost there." He winked, already turning back to Doreen. "Dinner ready?" "In 10 minutes, darling." She vanished into the kitchen. I felt a little tug on my hand and looked down. Lily was still beside me, clinging tightly. She hadn't moved or been acknowledged. "Daddy, look what Grandma gave me," she said softly, lifting the crescent moon pendant for him to see. Fletcher spared it a half-second glance. "Nice little trinket," he said before turning back to Lance. "So, what's up with your new game level?" Lily's shoulders sagged, her small smile vanishing. I felt an ache deep in my chest. Fletcher had always been a bit self-absorbed, but this was beyond neglect, it was erasure. At dinner, I watched the family dynamic with growing unease. Fletcher and Doreen spoke animatedly about their next vacation. Lance and Marissa jabbered over each other about school gossip and friends. Lily sat silently, eyes fixed on her plate, as if afraid to be noticed. No one addressed her. No one asked about her day. She was a ghost at her own table. "How's school going, Lily?" I asked during a lull. The entire table stilled, as if I had reminded them she existed. "She's having trouble with math," Fletcher answered before she could speak. "Her teacher says she needs to study more." "But I checked her assignments earlier," I said, glancing at Lily. "Everything was correct." "So she's finally getting smart," Doreen muttered, stifling a snort. "Last week she got an F." "It wasn't an F," Lily said softly. "It was a B. Just one mistake." "Don't contradict your mother," Fletcher snapped, not even looking at her. Lance and Marissa exchanged smug glances. My blood chilled. Something was deeply wrong here, and Lily was at the center of it. After dinner, Fletcher poured us each a brandy. We sat in the living room while Doreen put the children to bed. "How are you really doing, Mom?" he asked. "Isn't it lonely in that big house?" "I'm used to it," I said with a shrug. "I've got the book club, my garden. Sometimes I volunteer at the library." "You could sell the house," he said casually. "Move into a smaller apartment, or even into our place. We've got a guest room." I studied him carefully. There was no warmth in the offer, only calculation. "I like my house," I said firmly. "Too many memories of your father to just sell it." "Of course. I get that," he said quickly. "Just trying to make things easier for you." "It's not too hard for me," I replied. I took a sip of my cognac. "By the way, I noticed some new things. The coffee maker, the microwave, and Doreen mentioned your little vacation in March." Fletcher hesitated. "Yeah, things have picked up. Got a bonus at work. Doreen's pay went up too." I nodded slowly. "Good to hear. That means soon you'll really be able to manage without my help." "Of course, Mom," he said with a grin. "Won't be long now." Just then, Lily appeared at the stairs, dressed in her pajamas, clutching her new pendant. She wrapped her arms around me. "Come back tomorrow, Grandma," she whispered. "I will, sweetheart," I said, kissing her forehead. Doreen appeared in the kitchen doorway, her expression pinched. "Lily, you should be in bed. Go upstairs." Lily gave me one last glance before hurrying away. I sat still for a moment, reflecting. The beautiful image of a thriving, loving family was only surface deep. My son and his wife were living above their means on my dime. And worse, far worse, something was categorically wrong in how they treated Lily. Back at home, I settled into the old chair by the window, the one George always used when he was deep in thought. "What would you do, dear?" I asked aloud, imagining him still beside me. The answer came instantly, quiet but steady in my heart. "What's right, Evie? You always know what's right." Over the next week, I visited Fletcher's house twice more. Each time, I noticed new red flags. Lily, barely 6, was always busy, dusting shelves, folding laundry, scrubbing dishes. My children had never been burdened like that at her age. Lance and Marissa, meanwhile, lounged with phones and video games, their chores seemingly non-existent. I bit my tongue. Every family runs their household differently. Still, something gnawed at me. That Saturday, I decided to stop by unannounced. Doreen typically worked weekends, and I hoped to spend some quiet, unfiltered time with Lily. I brought a new dinosaur book, she had an unusual love for them, and a box of chocolates for Fletcher. It was a bright, warm May morning. As I neared the house, I heard raised voices. The windows were open. I slowed, my instincts prickling. "I told you to clean this place up this morning." Fletcher's voice, sharp and angry, cut through the air. "Look at this mess." I tried, Dad, but Lance spilled the juice and I had to mop it first. Lily's voice was quiet, shaking. "I'm not interested in your excuses. Clean up the kitchen now." I reached the open kitchen window and peered in. Fletcher loomed over Lily, his face red with fury. My granddaughter stood small and wilted, her arms drawn in, shoulders trembling. The kitchen table was messy, yes, but nothing that deserved this treatment. Lance and Marissa stood nearby, grinning. "Look, she's gonna cry," Marissa giggled. "She always does," Lance sneered. "Little crybaby." Fletcher didn't correct them. He shoved a rag into Lily's tiny hands. "You've got 10 minutes. No cartoons for a week if this place isn't spotless." Lily bit her lip hard. I felt something break inside me. This angry, cruel man was not the son I had raised. George had never raised his voice to the children, not even when they truly misbehaved. I marched to the front door and knocked. Lance opened it, surprise flashing across his face. "Grandma's here," he called, his voice suddenly stiff. Fletcher appeared, all smiles again. "Mom, what a surprise. We were just about to have breakfast." I stepped in, noting the signs of a frantic cleanup, the couch cushions hastily arranged, magazines stacked sloppily. "I brought something for Lily," I said, holding up my bag. "Where is she?" "In the kitchen, helping clean up," Fletcher said casually. "We're teaching her responsibility." "What are Lance and Marissa's responsibilities?" I asked, heading toward the kitchen. Fletcher hesitated. "They've got schoolwork, after-school activities. Lily's younger. It's good for her to help out." I said nothing as I entered the kitchen. Lily stood on a stool, scrubbing the countertop. When she saw me, her face lit up with joy and worry. "Grandma!" she gasped, leaping into my arms. Her little body shook as I hugged her. She smelled of soap, and something else. Fear. "I brought you something, Sunshine," I said, pulling the book from my bag. "Dinosaurs. Just the way you like." She took the book like it was made of glass. "Thank you, Grandma," she whispered. "Lily, you haven't finished cleaning," Fletcher said, stepping in. I turned to him, unflinching. "I think she's done enough. Why don't Lance or Marissa help?" "Mom, we decide how to run our house," he said stiffly. Then explain to me why a 6-year-old is cleaning the kitchen while 2 teenagers watch TV, and why you're yelling at her loud enough for the neighbors to hear. Fletcher's face hardened. "Lily, go to your room." Lily looked at me. I nodded gently. "Go ahead, sweetheart. I'll be up in a minute." When her footsteps faded, I faced my son. "I didn't raise you to treat children this way." "You're exaggerating," he said with a dismissive wave. "It was just a raised tone. I saw it. I heard Marissa and Lance laugh while you scolded her. That's not teasing, it's bullying. And you stood by. She's quiet. She's fine. She helps out. She's quiet because she's scared." I shot back. "And that's not helping out, it's being treated like a servant." At that moment, Marissa walked in. "Dad, Lance and I are going to the mall. You promised us money for sneakers." Fletcher's face softened. "Sure thing, princess. Take my wallet, there should be enough." Marissa kissed his cheek and darted out. I raised my brow. "So there's money for sneakers. But Lily—" "Stop it, Mom," he snapped. "You don't know the whole situation." "I know enough," I said. She's not just being left out. She's being hurt. Lily's easier. Doreen's kids just need more right now. She's calm because she's shut down, Fletcher. Can't you see what's happening? Lance strolled in, phone in hand. Dad, we're heading out. Back for dinner. Don't spend it all on junk, Fletcher called. And keep an eye on your sister. Lance nodded and left. I looked at Fletcher. Isn't Lily going with them? Why? He asked, genuinely puzzled. She'd be bored. Maybe she wants new things too. Maybe she just wants to be included. Fletcher exhaled sharply. Mom, stop it. Lily will have a great time at home with her new book, Fletcher said, waving a hand dismissively. She doesn't like noisy places. I doubted anyone had even asked her what she liked. But I let it go for the moment and shifted gears. Speaking of money, I said smoothly, you mentioned things are going well at work? Fletcher perked up, clearly relieved by the change in subject. Yes, I'm hoping for a promotion by the end of summer. That's great. I smiled. So, you'll be able to manage without my help with the mortgage soon. His smile faltered. Well, not right away. The raise will be phased in. I see, I said, nodding slowly. Are new sneakers, smartphones, and coast vacations part of that phased process? Fletcher flushed. Are you keeping track of my spending? No, I replied calmly. Just watching. And what I see, I don't like, Fletcher. You're using my money to spoil your wife's children while keeping your own daughter as a housemaid. That's not true, he said defensively, voice rising. I love all my children equally. Then why have I never seen you hug Lily? Or kiss her? Or even ask how she's doing in school? You call Marissa princess and hand her money like it's candy. Fletcher looked away, jaw tight. You don't understand, he muttered. Doreen's sensitive about how I treat her kids. It's been hard on them since the divorce. Especially Lance. His father's barely in their lives. What about Lily? I asked quietly. She's struggling too. She feels like she doesn't belong in her own home. That's absurd, he said, waving it off. She's fine. She's just quiet. At that moment, the front door opened and Doreen's voice echoed in. I'm home. Got off early. She appeared in the kitchen doorway still dressed in her work clothes, pencil skirt, blouse buttoned to the collar. Her face shifted when she saw me. Evelyn, I didn't know you were coming by today. It was a spontaneous visit, I said, keeping my tone even. I wanted to spend time with my granddaughter. Doreen smiled, but the chill in her eyes didn't budge. That's nice. Lily will be happy. She's always asking about you. She does. I raised an eyebrow. Funny. I didn't think her opinions were very welcome in this house. A silence fell. Doreen looked at Fletcher, who gave her a small, warning shake of his head. Is something wrong? Doreen asked, trying to sound casual. Mom thinks we're mistreating Lily, Fletcher said sharply. Doreen's face turned theatrical in an instant, eyebrows raised, mouth parted. What? That's a misunderstanding. We love Lily. She's our child. Then why is she scrubbing the kitchen while the others are off getting new sneakers? I asked. Doreen tucked a strand of hair behind her ear, her tell when nervous. You're misunderstanding the situation, Evelyn. We're just teaching her structure. Lance and Marissa help too, but they've got more responsibilities. More schoolwork, activities, like today's mall trip. That was planned a while ago. Marissa's outgrown her sneakers, Fletcher added quickly. And Lance has a school competition. Does Lily have new shoes? Or books? Toys? Gadgets? I pressed. She has everything she needs, Doreen said, her voice firm. We don't spoil our kids. Except for Lance and Marissa, I said. I just saw Fletcher give them money for entertainment while Lily cleaned the kitchen. Doreen moved closer to Fletcher and rested her hand on his shoulder. They were closing ranks. Evelyn, we respect you, she said. But parenting is our job. We have our own system. And it works. Lily is a happy, healthy child. Are you sure? I stared at her. When's the last time you asked her if she was happy? Doreen dropped her gaze, retreating to the stove. I think we all need to calm down, she said softly. Let's have some tea. She turned with a forced smile. Fletcher, darling, could you go get Lily? I'm sure she wants to show her grandma her new drawings. The saccharine tone was almost unbearable. A performance. I'd seen the same mask too many times back when I worked in accounting, clients desperate to hide financial messes behind polite smiles. I'll go up myself, I said, turning for the stairs. Mom, Fletcher reached for my hand, let's not make a big deal out of this. We're doing fine. I pulled my hand away. I see how you're doing it, and I don't like it. As I climbed the stairs, their muffled voices followed me, Doreen whispering something urgent to Fletcher. At Lily's door, I knocked gently. Come in, came her soft reply. She was perched on the edge of her bed, flipping carefully through her dinosaur book. Her tiny fingers traced the illustrations like they were fragile treasures. Do you like it, sweetheart? I sat beside her. Very much, she nodded. Especially the Triceratops. He has such cool horns. I smiled, smoothing a hand over her hair. Lily, you can always tell me if something's wrong. If something is bothering you. She looked up, eyes wide and fearful. It's okay, Grandma, isn't it? I took her hand gently. I think it's been hard for you. I saw your daddy yelling today. Lily looked down. I just didn't clean up fast enough. I tried, but Lance spilled juice and said it was my fault. And you had to clean up after him. She nodded, eyes on her lap. She nodded, eyes on her lap. Does that happen a lot? They make you clean and they don't help. After a pause, she answered so quietly I barely heard it. Mom says I have to be helpful because I live in their house. Something inside me cracked. Lily, I said, voice thick. This is your house. You're not a guest. You don't have to earn your place. Her shoulders trembled. I pulled her into a hug, and she clung to me tightly. Lance and Marissa say I'm not a real sister, she whispered. That nobody wants me. That's not true, I said fiercely. You are loved. You belong. I want you. Your parents need you too, they just don't see it yet. At that moment, Doreen appeared in the doorway with a stiff smile. There you are. I made hot chocolate. Lily, come down to the kitchen. Lily tensed in my arms. We'll sit here a little longer, I said. We're looking at dinosaurs. But the chocolate will get cold, Doreen said, smile tightening. Then bring it here, I returned evenly. If it's not too much trouble. We're more comfortable here. Doreen clearly wanted to argue but stopped herself. All right, but don't stay too long. Lily has another reading class. I turned to Lily after she left. What reading class? Mommy gives me syllable books, she explained. I have to read 20 pages every day. But you're already a good reader. She says I have to be the best. Lily shrugged. Or I'll embarrass the family. That was the last straw. No 6-year-old should live in fear of embarrassing anyone. She shouldn't feel like a servant in her home. Or like an outsider. We spent another hour together, flipping pages and laughing about dinosaurs. Slowly, The tension lifted from her shoulders. When it was time for me to go, she hugged me tightly. "Come back tomorrow, Grandma," she said. "I will, sweetheart," I promised. "And guess what? Why don't you come visit me for the whole day? We can bake cookies, watch cartoons." Her face lit up, then fell. "Mom won't let me. I have homework and chores." "Leave that to me," I whispered. "It'll be fine." Downstairs, Fletcher and Doreen were sitting stiffly in the living room, clearly mid-argument. They fell silent as soon as they saw me. "I'm leaving," I said briskly. "But I have a proposition. I'd like to take Lily with me all day tomorrow." Doreen opened her mouth, but Fletcher jumped in first. "Of course, Mom," he said quickly. "It's a good idea. It's been a long time since you two spent time together." I could tell Fletcher only agreed to let Lily visit me to avoid another argument, but that was fine by me. "Great," I said. "I'll pick her up at 9 in the morning." On the drive home, the weight of everything I'd seen and heard pressed down on me. The reality was worse than I'd feared. My son and his wife had created a toxic household, where Lily was made to feel unwanted, humiliated, and used. Meanwhile, my financial support was funding entertainment and luxuries for Doreen's children, who weren't mine, while my own granddaughter didn't receive even the bare minimum of affection or care. I thought about something George used to say, "Money is a tool, EV. It can create or destroy." And right now, my money was supporting a system that was slowly destroying Lily's sense of self. When I got home, I sat down at the dining room table and opened the file drawer. I pulled out every document tied to the house, our agreement with the bank, the paperwork outlining my co-payments on the mortgage, the statements showing my regular transfers, even the title deeds. There had been a time when soft words and compromise were enough. That time had passed. If money was the only leverage I had over Fletcher, then it was time to use it. The next day with Lily only solidified my decision. Freed from the tense atmosphere of her home, she blossomed like a flower finally seeing sunlight. She laughed, chatted, and darted around my garden, her joy echoing through the air. We baked chocolate chip cookies, watched dinosaur cartoons, made paper crafts, and laughed over stories. I showed her an old photo album with pictures of Fletcher as a boy. Lily's eyes widened in amazement as she stared at the sun-kissed boy building sandcastles and riding his bike. "Is that really my daddy?" she asked, her small hand touching the photo gently. "Yes, sweetie," I said. "He was a cheerful, kind boy." Her voice was quiet. "Now he gets angry a lot." That simple, matter-of-fact statement broke my heart. When it was time to return her, her face darkened. She packed up her books and crafts, folding them with care into her backpack. At Fletcher's front door, she hugged me tightly. "Thank you, Grandma. It was the best day ever." Doreen opened the door with a strained smile, quickly whisking Lily upstairs, claiming she needed to change. Fletcher, I learned from Doreen's sister, was working on his day off. I doubted that. Back at my place, I picked up the phone and dialed Harrison Thatcher. George and I had known the Thatcher family for more than 3 decades. Harrison had been our attorney, guiding us through countless legal matters, transactions, insurance, estate planning. After George passed, Harrison had taken care of everything. He answered with that same warm, steady voice I remembered from 20 years ago. "Evelyn, what a pleasant surprise. I need counsel, Harry, regarding financial obligations to my son." "Of course. When would you like to meet?" We scheduled a meeting for the next morning. Though Harrison had semi-retired, he kept a small office in the law firm he'd once founded. The morning was gray and overcast, fitting for the mood I carried. I dressed in one of my old work suits, buttoned, crisp, black. Serious decisions called for a serious mindset. I gathered the financial documents into a briefcase and headed downtown to Raytown. Harrison's office was in an old brick building on Maple Street. His longtime secretary, Mrs. Pottots, greeted me with a warm smile. "Mrs. Hughes, it's been a while. Mr. Thatcher is expecting you." Inside, Harrison stood to greet me, his reddish hair grayer now, but his sharp blue eyes still unchanged. "Evie, you look lovely." We hugged, and I replied with a tight smile. "Not bad, Harry. But there's a matter I need to resolve." We sat in the leather chairs by his desk, and I handed him the file. "It's about Fletcher's house. I helped with the down payment 5 years ago, remember?" "Of course," he nodded. "We arranged the agreement with the bank." "I've been making 2/3 of the mortgage payments ever since," I said, showing him the bank statements. "It was supposed to be temporary, until Fletcher could stand on his own. But things have changed." I explained what I had seen in their home, Lily's neglect, the preferential treatment of Doreen's children, and their frivolous spending. "So, I've decided to stop the funding. I need to know what the legal implications would be." Harrison listened carefully, flipping through the documents. When he was done, he leaned back. "Legally, you have no obligation to continue. The bank recognizes you as a third party on the payment schedule, but Fletcher is the primary borrower. If you stop, he assumes full responsibility. If he can't pay, the bank will start foreclosure proceedings, first warnings, then late fees, and eventually an auction." I nodded. That's what I had expected. But Harrison didn't stop there. He leaned forward. "There's something else. While you were talking, I ran a quick check on the property. Fletcher took out another loan against the house about 8 months ago. A home equity loan. Quite a large one." My heart sank. He hasn't even paid off the first mortgage. "There was enough equity built up thanks to your payments and the rising market value. That allowed him to get a second loan. Around $50,000. I remembered the flashy new SUV, the beach vacation, the shiny gadgets. "And what did he use it for?" I asked, though I already knew. "I can't say for sure," Harrison replied, "but it wasn't repairs. That kind of money suggests indulgent spending." I stared at the documents. And I didn't know anything about this, even though I'm the one keeping the first mortgage afloat. "He didn't have to inform you," Harrison said. "He's the legal owner of the house." "Well," I straightened, "that clears it up. I want a legally sound way to withdraw my support." "I'll draft a letter to the bank," Harrison said. "You'll also need to cancel the standing order at your bank. That will be enough to end your involvement. Then it's up to Fletcher. Either he makes the full payments, sells the house, or risks foreclosure." I nodded solemnly. "Prepare the letter. And while we're at it, I'd like to discuss my will." We spent another hour going through everything. When I left, my heart was heavy, but there was a sense of relief. I was no longer financing my own granddaughter's oppression. At the bank, I canceled the standing order. Then I pulled out my phone. It was time to speak to Fletcher. "Mom," he answered, surprised. I rarely called during work hours. "We need to talk," I said. "It's important. Can you come by after work?" Doreen and I have plans." "Cancel them." My voice left no room for negotiation. "I'll see you at 6. There was a pause. "Okay. But, what's going on?" "I'll see you then, Fletcher." He ignored the offer. "Mom, what's this about? You sound like something terrible happened." "Not terrible," I said evenly. "But serious. I've decided to stop financing your house." He blinked, then gave a shaky laugh. "What do you mean, stop financing?" "Exactly what I said," I replied. "Starting this month, I'm no longer making payments on your mortgage. It's your full responsibility now." He stared at me. "But why? What happened?" I opened my eyes. I sipped my tea. I saw how you treat Lily. I saw you yelling at her. I saw Lance and Marissa bully her while Doreen assigns chores to a 6-year-old and calls it character building. There you go again, Fletcher snapped. We're teaching her responsibility. No, Fletcher, I said calmly. You're using her as a housemaid. And my money is funding the royal treatment of Doreen's children. That's not true, he said hotly. We treat all the kids equally. Do you? I raised an eyebrow. Then explain why Lance has a new phone and a new bike. Why Marissa has a pool membership and designer clothes. While Lily wears hand-me-downs and stays home doing homework when they're at the mall or on vacation. Fletcher looked away. They have different needs. Lance needs to stay in touch. Marissa has a medical condition. And Lily. I cut in. She's homeschooled because you've given her no other option. She's isolated. Alone. And I know about the second mortgage. His eyes widened. Where did you? It doesn't matter. What matters is that you took out a massive loan without saying a word while I was paying your first mortgage. And from what I've seen, new cars, vacations, gadgets, that money didn't go to pay off debts. We had credit card bills, he said, faltering. Tuition for the kids. For Lance and Marissa, not Lily. She goes to public school. He jumped to his feet. Are you spying on us? Counting every penny. No, I said evenly. I'm watching. And what I see, I don't like. You've used my money to fund a lifestyle you can't afford, while neglecting my granddaughter. It's not fair, he exclaimed. You can't just cut me off like that. I can. I placed my cup down. And I already have. I canceled the bank order and sent the letter to the lender. From the 1st of next month, it's your responsibility alone. Fletcher's face went pale, the truth finally sinking in. You won't do it, Fletcher said, his voice teetering between disbelief and desperation. I already did, I replied evenly. But we can't afford the full amount, he stammered, panic creeping into his tone. We don't have enough money. Then you'll have to rethink your spending, I said with a shrug. Buy less. Spend less on entertainment. The way regular families live when they're on a budget. Fletcher raked his hand through his hair, his old nervous tic when he was cornered. Mom, you can't do this to us. We could lose the house. Yes, I said calmly. That's a possibility. If you don't find a way to make the payments, then yes, you may lose the house. And you don't care that your grandkids might end up on the street? He snapped. I care, I said, my voice tightening. I care that one of my grandchildren is being humiliated and neglected in her own home. And I don't believe you'll end up on the street. You can always sell the house and move into something more affordable. Or rent. He stared at me, eyes searching, like he was trying to find a familiar face in a stranger. I don't recognize you, Mom. You've never been so cruel. It's not cruelty, Fletcher, I said. It's justice. I've turned a blind eye for too long. This is me finally choosing to face the truth. He slumped back into the chair, his shoulders sagging under the weight of consequences. What do you want? He asked quietly. For me to apologize? Fine. I was too hard on Lily. I'll make it up to her. I'll make it up to you. This isn't about apologies, I said, shaking my head. It's about the fact that you've let your new family push your own daughter into the margins. You used my money to give privileges to your wife's children while Lily lives like Cinderella. That's an exaggeration, he snapped. No, Fletcher. I saw it with my own eyes. And my decision is made. Suddenly, his entire demeanor changed. His face softened, his voice gentler, more persuasive. I recognized it instantly. His childhood voice, the one he used when he wanted to stay up late or get a new toy. "Mom, let's be reasonable," he said, leaning in. "Maybe we can find a compromise. I promise I'll do better by Lily. I'll make sure Lance and Marissa treat her better. Doreen will too. We'll fix it." "I'm sure you will," I said with a nod. "Now that your financial well-being depends on it. But my decision still stands." His fists clenched on the table. "You can't do this to us. After everything we've been through. After Dad died, I was there for you." "You visited me once a month, Fletcher," I said softly. "That's not the same as being there. And you know I've always managed my finances on my own." He stood abruptly, pacing the room. "It's Prudence, isn't it?" he snapped, voice rising. "She turned you against me. She's always been Daddy's favorite. Always trying to make me look bad." "Prudence had nothing to do with this," I said firmly. "This is my decision, based on what I saw. And what I saw was enough." He stopped, trying to read me, then shook his head. "Okay, I get your position. But I still don't believe you'll go all the way, Mom. You're not that kind of person. You wouldn't really leave your family hanging like this." In his eyes, I saw something chilling, a confidence born of years of getting away with just enough. He still believed I was the soft-hearted mother who would eventually cave. "Don't test me, Fletcher," I said quietly. "I love you. You're my son. But I won't support what's happening in your house any longer." He smirked, the kind of smug grin that had always grated on me. "Okay, Mom. You've made your point. Let's revisit this in a week, when everyone's calmed down." He was still convinced this was an emotional outburst. A bluff. That self-assurance only deepened my resolve. "Nothing will change in a week, Fletcher. The standing order is cancelled. The bank has been notified. You'll be receiving the full mortgage bill starting next month." He shrugged, still smiling, though I caught a flicker of anxiety in his eyes. "Whatever you say. I have to go. Doreen's waiting." He paused at the door, glancing back one last time. "I know you won't go through with this, Mom. You always said family was everything." "That's exactly why I'm doing this," I said. "For Lily. She's my family too." When the door closed behind him, I sat still, the silence pressing in like a weight. I knew this was just the beginning of a long, painful journey. But for the first time in years, I felt like I was doing the right thing. Sometimes it takes stepping back to see the full picture, and now that I had, there was no turning back. 2 months passed in silence. Fletcher didn't call. He didn't visit. But what hurt most was that I didn't see Lily either. I tried stopping by the house, but Doreen always had an excuse. Lily was sick, she was at tutoring, they were out of town. I even tried calling the landline during the day, when I knew Fletcher and Doreen were at work. Usually, Lance or Marissa answered, saying Lily was busy. I managed to get Lily on the phone once, just long enough to hear her whisper, "Grandma, they won't let me see you," before the line cut out. By the end of July, the heat was unbearable. One morning, while tending to my garden early before the sun grew too harsh, I noticed a police car moving slowly down the street. No, 2 men stepped out, not officers, but bailiffs. They walked straight up to Fletcher's house with a file in hand. I froze, pruning shears dangling in midair. It had happened. The bank was starting eviction proceedings. I'd expected more time before it reached that point. About 20 minutes later, the bailiffs posted a document on the front door and left. Another hour passed, and I saw Fletcher's car screech into the driveway. He rushed to the door, tore down the paper, and crumpled it in rage. I waited. And sure enough, the next day, the phone rang. "Mom," Fletcher said. His voice was hollow. "We need to talk." "Of course," I replied gently. "Come over whenever you're able."
I'll be there in an hour.
He arrived even sooner, looking worn down and thinner, the confident man from 2 months ago gone. His shirt was wrinkled, his face drawn. The bank started foreclosure, he said, collapsing into a chair. The house goes to auction in 3 weeks. I nodded and poured him a cup of tea. I assumed it would come to that. How many payments did you miss?
4. He ran a hand over his face.
I tried to restructure, but with the second mortgage, they wouldn't help.
I see. So what now?
He looked up at me, exhausted. We're moving. We can't catch up. Doreen's looking at a 2-bedroom apartment on the North End.
Small, but it's all we can afford.
There was a pause. Then he said, Mom, I've come to ask for help. Not for the house. I know that's over, but we need money for the deposit. First and last month's rent.
Just a few thousand.
I studied him carefully. He looked genuinely defeated. But I had one question left. What about Lily? How's she handling the move? He looked away. She's fine. Kids adjust. But 2 bedrooms? Where will she sleep?
With Marissa, he said too quickly. They'll work it out.
I doubted that very much. I could imagine the strain already building. I need to see Lily, I said. I haven't given you money all this time because I wanted you to reflect on how she's being treated. Has anything changed? We're trying, Mom, he sighed. But it's a hard time. We're all stressed. That's why I need to see her, I said firmly. She needs to know I'm still here for her. He hesitated, then relented. Come by tomorrow. We'll all be home packing. The next afternoon, I walked to Fletcher's house with a heavy heart. I could sense things were still wrong. Doreen's car was in the driveway, and a minivan with a trucking label was parked beside it. The move was underway. Doreen opened the door. She tried to smile, but her eyes betrayed the tension. Evelyn, come in. We're just finishing up the packing. The house was a mess. Boxes, bags, disassembled furniture scattered everywhere. Lance and Marissa sat glued to their screens, completely detached from the upheaval.
Where's Lily?
I asked directly. Upstairs, Doreen replied. Packing her things. Such a responsible little girl. I climbed the stairs and found Lily folding her few clothes into a battered suitcase. When she saw me, she lit up and ran to hug me. Grandma, I missed you so much. I missed you too, sweetheart, I whispered, hugging her tight. I could feel her tiny heart pounding. How are you? I asked gently. I'm okay, she said with a shrug. We're moving. Dad says the apartment will be small, but there's a park. Are you excited? She hesitated. I don't know. Marissa's mad she has to share a room with me. She said she'll throw out my stuff if I take up too much space. My heart clenched. Still the same cruelty. Still the same injustice. What about your school? Lily looked down. I have to go to a new one. Dad said Abby won't be there. Just then, Doreen appeared in the doorway, her smile too bright. Lily, sweetheart, Daddy wants to talk to you about the new school. Lily nodded obediently and left the room, casting me one last glance. When we were alone, Doreen's smile faded. Fletcher said you came to offer help. Was that true? Her tone was cold now, all pretense gone. I came to see Lily, I said, arms crossed, and to assess the situation. As you can see, it's not great, she said, scanning the cluttered room. We're losing the house because of your decision.
No, I corrected her.
Because of Fletcher's decision to take out a loan he couldn't repay.
And both your decision to spend beyond your means.
Doreen's mouth tightened. That's in the past. Right now, we need help. And so does Lily, I said sharply. She's the one I'm most worried about. So tell me, how has she been living these past 2 months? Why didn't you let me see her? We were upset, Doreen said with a shrug. It's a natural reaction. I didn't respond. I simply looked around at the shell of the home, the cardboard boxes, the strain in the walls. It wasn't just a house that was falling apart. It was a family. Using a child as a tool for revenge isn't a natural reaction, I objected firmly. It's manipulation. Doreen's expression shifted immediately. Her confrontational mask melted away, replaced with a softer, pleading tone. Evelyn, let's be honest. We all make mistakes. Maybe we haven't always been fair to Lily, but things are really hard for us right now, and she's the one suffering most. A new school, a cramped apartment, sharing a room with Marissa, who, I admit, isn't always kind to her. I studied her face, trying to determine her angle, sensing there was more behind her sudden vulnerability. What are you suggesting? I asked cautiously. Doreen paused, pretending to consider the idea in real time, though her tone betrayed rehearsed intent. Maybe Lily could stay with you for a while. At least until we get back on our feet. It would be better for everyone. She'd keep her room, her school, her friends. And it would help us fit into the apartment. So that was it. The real motive surfaced. They decided to offer Lily as a bargaining chip, bait, hoping I'd reopen my wallet. How long is a while? I asked. Doreen gave a vague flutter of her hand. Until we find a bigger place. A few months, maybe. And you expect me to support Lily entirely during that time? Cover all her expenses? School fees, clothes, food. That would be very helpful, Doreen said with a small smile, sugar-coated and slick. We'll help in any way we can. I considered it. The thought of Lily having peace, stability, a real home again, it tugged at my heart. But I didn't trust Doreen, not fully. I needed Fletcher's input before agreeing to anything. I went downstairs and found him in the study, surrounded by disheveled piles of papers. Doreen suggested Lily stay with me, I said directly. Fletcher didn't look surprised. He nodded. Yes, we talked about it. It makes sense. And the legal side? I asked. Are you willing to arrange a temporary guardianship? He frowned. Guardianship? Why make it so formal? It's just a short-term thing. If Lily's going to live with me, I need legal authority to make decisions about her schooling, healthcare, and safety, I explained. Without guardianship, my hands are tied. Fletcher mulled it over in silence. Then, finally, he nodded. Okay, if that's what you need. But it has to be temporary, and we want to see her regularly. Of course, I'd never prevent that, I assured him. But there's one more thing. If Lily stays with me, I'll care for her fully. But I won't give money to you. Fletcher's face darkened. So you're taking our daughter, and you still refuse to help us with housing? I'm not taking her, I said calmly. I'm giving her stability while you sort out your life. This was Doreen's suggestion, and I agree it's the best for Lily. But I won't fund your lifestyle. His voice rose. We don't even have the money for a security deposit. Then sell Doreen's car, I said. Or Lance's electronics. Or the jewelry you gave your wife. You have enough valuables to raise what you need. Fletcher slammed his fist on the table. You're punishing us. No, I said with a sigh. I'm finally refusing to enable bad habits. Think about it, Fletcher. Lily stays in her school, keeps her friends, has a stable home, and you get the breathing room to rebuild. It's a good option for everyone. He stood in silence, then slowly nodded. Fine. But only temporarily. And we'll visit every weekend. A week later, all the legal arrangements were finalized. Harrison helped with the paperwork, ensuring everything was proper and binding. I was granted temporary custody of Lily for 1 year, renewable if needed. Fletcher signed the forms with visible reluctance, but he had little choice. Their new apartment was so small, Lily would have been sleeping on a cot in the corner of Marissa's room. The day Lily moved in was simple. She had so few possessions that everything fit into a single suitcase and a backpack. I gave her the room that once belonged to Prudence, sunny, spacious, overlooking the garden. I bought a new bed, desk, bookshelves. It was her own space, perhaps for the first time in her life. When Lily walked in, her eyes widened. "This is all for me?" she asked in disbelief. "All yours, sweetheart," I said, pulling her close. "You can decorate it however you like." The first few days were tough. She often woke up crying, calling out for her dad in the middle of the night. I sat with her, held her, told stories until she calmed down. Slowly, her smiles returned. Her laugh rang a little louder. She started talking more, finding joy in the little things. Fletcher and Doreen came by that first weekend, just as they'd promised. They brought her a new doll, expensive, dressed in lace and frills. Lily thanked them politely, but I saw the lukewarm reaction behind her eyes. Later, she confided in me, "I don't really like dolls, Grandma. I like books and puzzles." That quiet admission broke something in me. They didn't even know what their daughter liked. The visit was strained. Lance and Marissa didn't come. They were busy with homework, Doreen claimed. Fletcher was stiff, giving monosyllabic answers to Lily's questions about the new apartment. Doreen, ever the actress, tried to put on a show of warmth and closeness, but the facade was thin and transparent. 3 weeks after Lily moved in, I decided to update my will. I scheduled a meeting with my notary for Tuesday morning. Harrison came along to ensure everything was airtight. Mrs. Hughes, the notary, an older man with silver-rimmed glasses and a neatly trimmed beard, looked up from his papers. "So, Mrs. Hughes, you wish to amend your will, leaving your estate to your granddaughter Lily Hughes?" "Yes," I confirmed. "But it must be held in trust until she comes of age. Harrison will serve as trustee." "And your children, Fletcher and Prudence?" "Prudence will inherit some of my jewelry, the pieces that belonged to my mother. They hold sentimental value for her. Fletcher will receive his father's watch and cufflinks. Everything else, the house, bank accounts, investments, goes to Lily's trust." The notary nodded, scribbling his notes. "You understand this could be contested in court?" "Let him try," I said with a cool smile. "I have every reason to structure it this way. Harrison can attest to that." The documents were signed, witnessed, and filed. Harrison kept a copy, and I kept another. For the first time in a long while, I felt peaceful. Lily's future was secure, protected. I hadn't planned on telling Fletcher about the change, but fate had other ideas. That very afternoon, he showed up unexpectedly, saying he'd forgotten to give me some of Lily's paperwork. She was at school, so it was just the two of us. I offered him tea, and we made stilted small talk, weather, health, neighborhood gossip. But he was on edge. My briefcase, still resting on the table from my return earlier, caught his attention. The file inside was clearly labeled, "Will." "What's this?" Fletcher asked, nodding toward it. "Personal papers," I replied quickly, reaching for the case. But he was faster. He grabbed the folder and opened it. "You changed the will," he said, voice rising. "Today." "Fletcher, that's private," I said, holding out my hand. "Please give it back." But he was already scanning the contents, his face darkening with each line. "You're leaving everything to Lily," he demanded. "And me. A watch." "I'm entitled to do what I believe is right," I said evenly. "Lily needs protection and a future." Fletcher slammed the folder onto the table. You're disinheriting me over a petty grudge? After everything I've done for you?
I looked him dead in the eye.
What exactly have you done for me, Fletcher? You used my money for years. Let your wife and her children abuse my granddaughter. Took out loans behind my back. I'm your son, he shouted, standing up. Your flesh and blood. And you treat me like I'm nothing. You made that choice, Fletcher, I said quietly.
Not me.
When you decided your new family mattered more than your own daughter, when you let them treat Lily like a servant, when you used my money for luxuries instead of giving your child a normal life, that's when this all began, I said, my voice firm and quiet. Fletcher's hand came down hard on the table. I'll contest the will, he threatened. On what grounds? I raised an eyebrow. That I chose to care for my granddaughter instead of continuing to bankroll a 42-year-old man who refuses to manage his own life? His face darkened, eyes narrowing. You always loved Prudence more. Always put her above me. And now you've found a new favorite, Lily. That's not true, Fletcher, I said, shaking my head. I loved both of you. I still do. But love doesn't mean enabling selfishness and irresponsibility. I don't want to hear your lectures. He grabbed his jacket. You betrayed me, Mom. You took my house. Then you took my daughter. Now you've disinherited me. What's next? What's next is that you grow up, I replied calmly, and remember you have a daughter who still needs her father. I have 3 children, he snapped. Yes, but only one is your own flesh and blood, I reminded him gently. And she's the one you abandoned. Fletcher gave me a long, bitter glare, then turned on his heel and stormed out. The front door slammed behind him, and the angry roar of his car engine faded down the street. I stayed at the kitchen table, the newly signed will lying in front of me. I knew that was the end. Fletcher wouldn't forgive this final blow to his ego. But for the first time in years, I was at peace. I had done the right thing. Lily deserved a better life, and I was determined to give her that, no matter what her father thought. It's been a year now since the sound of a child's laughter returned to this house. Sometimes, when I wake in the morning, I forget for a moment that I'm not alone anymore. That the soft footsteps and clatter in the kitchen aren't George making his omelet, but Lily, carefully preparing tea and toast with jam in an effort to surprise me. That year flew by. What was once temporary custody became permanent without fanfare. When the renewal came, Fletcher didn't even contest it. He and Doreen had moved into a small apartment on the far edge of Raytown, in what the locals politely called a developing neighborhood. They visited Lily twice a month at first, both of them. But gradually, Fletcher came alone. The cracks in their marriage were visible, even in brief encounters. Doreen blamed him for the loss of their home and status. He blamed her for squandering every opportunity. Lance, now 15, was constantly in trouble at school. Marissa had quit swimming and withdrawn into herself. I didn't gloat. I felt sympathy, yes, but also clarity. Their unraveling wasn't random. It was the natural consequence of years of denial and poor choices. What lifted me, what filled me with quiet pride, was the change I saw in Lily. At first, she was guarded, wary, afraid to ask for anything. She still woke up at night, crying. I had to sit by her bed, holding her hand, reassuring her that no one would yell if she spilled juice or forgot to make her bed. Slowly, her shell began to crack. One morning, I heard her humming softly while watering the flowers on the windowsill. Another day, I caught her dancing in front of the mirror, using a hairbrush as a microphone. These were little things, but they were everything. At school, she'd always been an able student. Now, she began to shine. Her teacher, Mrs. Parkinson, remarked at our parent-teacher conference, "She's found her voice." Raising her hand, coming to the board, leading group discussions. It's like she's finally spread her wings. I smiled through misty eyes. I offered Lily the choice of any extracurricular she wanted.
"Can I really do anything?" she asked, wide-eyed.
Of course, sweetie, I said. Sports, art, science, whatever you like. She twirled the silver crescent moon pendant I had given her on her first night here. I want to learn piano, she whispered. We heard a concerto at school, and it was so beautiful. That week, I enrolled her at Mrs. Phelps' music school. A retired pianist with soft eyes and a streak of gray in her bun, Mrs. Phelps called me a month later, her voice bubbling with excitement. "Mrs. Hughes, your granddaughter has a remarkable ear. It's rare. She's playing pieces already that take others 6 months to learn." I wasn't surprised. Lily had always responded to music, humming melodies she heard, tapping out rhythms at dinner. There was never room to explore that in Fletcher's house, so I bought a used upright piano from neighbors who were moving to Florida. Lily spent hours at it, learning scales and simple songs. Her small fingers flew across the keys, confident, joyful. After 6 months, the school held its first student recital. Lily wore the simple blue dress we'd picked out together. I sat in the hall, heart thudding as she bowed and sat at the piano. She played a Schumann piece, not complicated, but in her hands, it sounded achingly tender. I had invited Fletcher. He never came. Called last minute, blaming work. I saw Lily scanning the audience before the performance, eyes searching, and then dimming. But when her fingers touched the keys, she played with everything inside her. Afterward, as we walked home in the cold evening air, she held my hand tightly, chattering about music, about which song she wanted to learn next. She didn't mention her father once. Fletcher's visits dwindled, once a month, then every other. He still brought gifts, always expensive, always wrong. Dolls Lily didn't like. Dresses too frilly for everyday life. One time, he hauled in a giant teddy bear that took up half her bedroom. "Thank you, Daddy," Lily said with polite detachment. But I saw the discomfort in her eyes. Fletcher didn't know his daughter at all. Not her preferences, not her passions, not her heart. She preferred dinosaur books to Barbies, encyclopedias to fashion magazines, symphonies to cartoons. On her 8th birthday, we threw a small party. Abby, her best friend, came, along with a few classmates. We had a piano-shaped cake and balloons. Lily radiated joy. Fletcher and Doreen came together, awkwardly polite. They gave her the latest tablet, too costly for their financial reality. Doreen looked around the house, quietly assessing, her eyes lingering on every improvement I'd made over the past year. It felt like she was tallying a future claim. After the party, with Lily upstairs unwrapping gifts, Fletcher asked to speak privately. We sat under the old apple tree in the garden. He looked older, grayer at the temples, more lines around his eyes. "Mom, I want to apologize," he began, eyes avoiding mine. "For everything. The way I acted. I studied him." "I'm glad to hear that," I said evenly. "Lily needs a father who can admit when he's wrong." "It's not just about Lily," he added. "I want to fix things between us, too. We're family. Has something changed?" He hesitated, then sighed. "Doreen and I are separating. She's taking the kids and moving in with her sister in Seattle." "I'm sorry," I said, and I meant it. "But I can't say I'm surprised." "No," he said bitterly. "I guess you always saw the truth. She's not who I thought." He went on, talking about bills, the apartment, how tight things were. Then carefully, he said, "I was hoping maybe I could move back in with you. Not forever. Just until I get back on my feet. And Lily, she'd love having me around." I considered it. Part of me ached to help him, but another part remembered everything. The lies, the neglect, the damage. "No, Fletcher," I said gently but firmly. "It's not a good idea. Lily is just now finding her footing. Your daily presence could shake that.
I'm her father, he snapped.
I have rights. Yes, and I've never stood in the way of your visits. But living here is different.
I don't believe you're ready.
So you still don't trust me, he muttered. I'm not punishing you. I'm protecting her. You haven't shown me you've changed enough to put her needs ahead of your own. His expression twisted. You're never going to give me a chance, are you? You'll keep her from me until she forgets I'm even her father. Lily knows who her family is, I said calmly. And you're always welcome to be part of her life. But not as a roommate. Fletcher stood, fists clenched. You'll regret this. I could still fight for custody.
On what grounds?
I stood as well. You have no stable home, no marriage, limited income. Any court would leave Lily with me. He knew I was right, and it infuriated him.
We'll talk again, he snapped and stormed inside.
After that, Fletcher disappeared for nearly 3 months. No calls, no letters. When Lily asked, I told her he was busy with work and would visit soon. She nodded, quietly understanding in a way no child should. One evening, while I knitted and Lily practiced piano, she suddenly stopped and turned to me. Grandma, does Daddy love me? I set the needles aside and wrapped my arm around her. Of course he does, sweetheart. He just doesn't always know how to show it. She traced the piano keys. When I lived with them, I used to think they'd be better off without me.
Like I was extra. You were never extra.
I held her tight. Some adults just don't understand the treasure they've been given. She smiled and leaned against me. I'm glad I live with you. You never make me feel extra. I never will, I whispered, kissing her hair. You're the best thing that's happened to me in years. In September, I got a postcard from Fletcher, Portland. He'd taken a job at an insurance company, started a new life, promised to call weekly, visit at Christmas. For 2 weeks, he called. Then, shorter calls. By Christmas, only a package arrived. No visit. Too much work, he'd written. Lily said nothing. I think she hadn't expected more. We celebrated quietly. Prudence and her family visited. We baked gingerbread, decorated the tree, attended Lily's school concert. It was peaceful. Still. Whole. In the new year, I decided we needed something new, something just for us. How would you feel about a summer trip? I asked over breakfast. A real trip. Lily's eyes lit up. Where? Anywhere. DC to see the museums. New York. Or even Europe. Her jaw dropped. Europe? Really? The Eiffel Tower? Castles? Anywhere you want, I said, smiling at her joy. That day, we went to the bookstore, bought atlases, guidebooks, a notebook to plan our journey. Every night, she researched, told me about new countries, new dreams. Watching her, bright, alive, I realized I had waited too long to live. I'd delayed travel for work, for George's illness, for obligations to Fletcher. But now, I had the courage to stop feeding broken relationships, to invest in a child's future. That was love, not indulgence but protection. That night, I stood beneath the stars, the garden cool and fragrant with spring. We made it, George, I whispered. She's safe. She's happy. And in the rustling leaves of the old apple tree, I heard his voice. I knew you'd make the right choice, Evie. I smiled. Summer lay ahead. Music, travel, wonder. For the first time in years, the future felt bright. Cinderella had found her true home. And this fairy tale had no stepmother, no lost slipper, only love, hope, and the wide open road ahead.